I think my advice for someone looking at a startup, starting their own business, uh, have a plan. I mean, it maybe you've heard this before, maybe this is a very common answer, but I mean, I would put it in this terms. Um, have one page. Have create a one page what your business is going to be about, what your product or service is, what you think your market will be, what your pricing will be. Do some, quick math to see, am I going to make money? You know, and have that in place. If you go, and this through the work that you do, Devin, but if you go to a bank for a small business loan, this kind of thing, they're going to want a plan.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Brian Kail. And Brian went to college in the University of Wisconsin in Madison, graduated and was trying to decide between going to live in Minneapolis or Milwaukee. Chose to go to Minneapolis. Didn't have too many job prospects and wasn't set financially yet. So found some jobs doing some government bids and writing submissions for those bids. And then as computers came out, he decided to garner or increase his skills on the computers, and went to work for the U.S. Bank during the 9/11 period, and worked during disaster recovery for a period of time. Went and worked in a few other corporate roles for about 8 years. Had a steady income, worked for the banks, and then hit a burnout point, was out of energy, and decided he wanted to make people his focus, and that's what he wanted to do. So went into coaching, enrolled in a coaching institute, learned and became certified, and then launched his own business, which he's been doing for some time now. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Brian.
Well, thank you, Devin. I am excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Excited to have you on. So I just gave a quick run through the 30-second version to a much longer journey. So let's rewind a bit and unpack that. So tell us how your journey got started going to the University of Wisconsin or Madison.
Sure. No problem. So that was a good introduction. And yes, I completed my bachelor's at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And my major was communication arts. I was especially interested in communication theory and did papers on that topic. And I graduated. And so it was time to enter the workaday world. And as you said, I kind of debated, where do I go from Madison? I'm from Southern Wisconsin originally, and I debated, which direction do I go? And music was pretty important to me. At the time, I felt like the Minnesota Orchestra was a better orchestra than Milwaukee. And so that was the underlying reason that I moved to the Twin Cities, to Minneapolis, and did attend the orchestra, concerts for a number of years. So that's kind of where I came just out of college. And as you said, I arrived in the Twin Cities. I didn't have business contacts. I knew a few other guys here, but they were broke college students like I was. So, I had to get my first job. So my very first corporate job was working for, it was called then Economics Laboratory. Now it's called Ecolab. But I improved on my typing skills, and I became a skilled typist. And that was my entry point into the workaday world, the corporate world. And as you said, I worked on government bids, contracts for the products they sold, they manufactured, and they sold. So that was kind of my entry point. And I did kind of the first part of my career, I did some light accounting. I'd be flattering myself if I called myself an accountant. But I did some light accounting, and I supported some marketing departments. then, then this crazy thing called PCs came out, and I got the bug. I mean, I was bit by the bug, and I was one of the, first guys on my block to get a PC running the old DOS operating system and trying to figure out directories and how things work, so forth. So then I made a switch from this kind of light accounting administrative work that I've been doing into IT, and started working first with PCs, and I was early on. I knew how to write equations in a spreadsheet. I knew how to write formulas in a spreadsheet, and that helped me. And I did some contracting, consulting in that area. I taught people how to do that, how to solve their business problems.
And one question on that. So, I mean, at the time, was this as you were learning the computer, was this kind of a side side hustle, if I can not get tongue tied, where, you're kind of learning it as for a fun or a hobby, and then you did kind of consulting on the side while you're doing the full-time job, or kind of how did that work?
Yeah. Yeah, so no, that's a good question. So at the time, I was I had some longer gigs, with, as I say, Ecolab, Piper Jaffray, an investment firm I worked with for a while. But I went through a period also where I was doing contract work and I was doing temp work, and so that was a kind of a good transition from administrative stuff that I was doing as a temp contractor into, hey, Brian, there's this small company, or here, here's a large company, here's GE Capital, and they need some help with their PC skills and, pulling their billing together. Can you go and help them? So that was kind of my transition.
No, that makes sense. So now you're doing that, and you say, okay, kind of doing the contract work, also doing this, interest in PCs, starting to get a bit of traction with that as a bit of a side hustle, so to speak. And then kind of, and I think at some point along there, you got started working for a US bank, or kind of that transition to there. Was that kind of out of necessity for, hey, I want a bit more of a stable job or a steady income, or kind of what kind of prompted that change or headed in that direction?
Yeah, so something like that. It was just part of a job search that I did. I think right before. So let me back up and say I worked for US Bank twice. And the first time I signed it was December of 1997. And I actually, right before that, I had been working for a large law firm. So I was supporting a large law firm downtown Minneapolis, like 50 attorneys and 50 support people and so forth. And, I had an opportunity to make a change. And so I went and I interviewed with US Bank. And it was an interesting journey that first go around. I interviewed on the job, and they said, well, this will be basically a server admin, network admin type role. And I accepted the position, and it was a good salary, and I came aboard. And really what I ended up doing was working on a team that migrated code into online systems, which is very new at that time. In fact, the one of the first online banking systems was home built by US Bank, and I helped supported that, migrated code, did some troubleshooting with the online systems at US Bank.
No, and that makes sense. So now you worked for US Bank. I think you started right around 9/11 and worked for them for about 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit before that. So I joined in, might as well say 1998, and I worked a couple different roles. I did this code migration. I also was asked to, at one point, to take responsibility for the server backup and restores for US Bank, and not just for the Twin Cities, not just for our data center, but for all servers that were connected to the network. So I had a small team at that time. And then you're right. September 11th change, that happened, and a lot of people's lives changed, and mine did as well. I was asked by my management if I could go into this team to support disaster recovery. That was getting obviously a lot of attention coming after September 11th. and we're looking at vulnerabilities and, how is our documentation looking? Are our plans connecting up with the business plans that various units had? And so that was a role that I had after September 11th, and I kept supporting the disaster recovery piece, specifically the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure, until I left in, I think it was 2004, 2005, something like that.
Mm. And I think one of the things you mentioned is part of why you left, if I not, or I guess putting words in your mouth, but you can certainly correct those words, is you're hitting a bit of, hey, getting a bit burned out, or otherwise a bit out of energy, done the corporate roles, done that or work for quite a bit of time.
No,
And so,
life was good. So there's a sandwich there. There's a little bit in the middle. So I did actually end up leaving US Bank. I wanted to work in more of a development role, not as a programmer, but as a liaison or interface between development groups, technology groups, and business partners, talking to the business partners about their needs and then providing solutions. And I did that for a couple different companies. Then you're right, I did go back to US Bank. This was 2011. I went back to US Bank, and I came back in a development role and development team, doing that that role that I just described, which was meeting with business partners, and really the focus was on business processes and business needs and understanding those, and we're being the liaison, the face of the development teams. But you're right. The timing was just a little bit off there. So I've been doing at that point. I think this is probably around 2014 thereabouts. You're right. I had been doing essentially that role, that kind of liaison to business partners, for about 12 years, and I was running out of energy. I mean, I was running out of energy. I wanted to do something very different. My focus, for so much of my career, has been on technology solutions, working on these projects that sometimes would be years. It could be months, could be years, and you deliver the solution, you deliver the software, and sometimes I wonder, at the end of the day, have I really helped anybody? Have we, really, have we really made their life better? And so I wanted to do something really different. I wanted to help people one-on-one. I wanted to work with people. I wanted to make helping people the focus of the work that I did. And that led me into, the startup that that's still active today.
No, that definitely makes sense. And so now one question, because I think that a lot of people can, or at least a portion of people, get burned out. In other words, you're saying, hey, it can be a lot of hours. It can be that I'm doing the same amount of work, or it can be, hey, I want to do something different. And there are a number of things, or it can just be, hey, I've had personal issues and things that come up, and I'm just, need a change, any number of things. But as you're hitting that, you're trying to figure out what you do as far as how you deal with burnout. Some people just push through it and, eventually get less burned out or make their way through it. And other people make that change, and other people kind of just flounder around. So as you were hitting that kind of burnout period, how did you do, how did you decide this is what I want to do? I want to go help people. Was it just came to you in a dream? Was it over a period of time? Was it, can't remember, but it worked out? Or kind of, how did that go?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And actually, if you've got a listener, if you got someone in the audience that they feel like they've hit that, they feel like they've hit that burnout, they've they had that sense that where's my energy, where's my passion for what I used to do. Frankly, they should, if they can't figure it out themselves, they should work with somebody like me. And the nature of what I'm doing now is as a career coach, and that's one of the things that we look at. If I have a consultation with a prospect, one of the first things I talk about is, I talk a little bit about their background, but I do a quick survey. Where scale of 1 to 10. 10 would be, I'm living the dream. I wouldn't change a darn thing. I love it. And 1 is, I'm so miserable, I don't think I can make it through the week. Where would you put yourself on that scale? And that gives me some starting point to then have a conversation and work through, is it you? Is it the organization? Is it the work that you're doing? In my case, I mean, I had clarity. It was not like I was walking around in a cloud, some kind of psychosis that I didn't know what was going on, right? So I knew it was the nature of what I was doing, and I got bored. I mean, that was the telling thing for me, that I got bored, and
Mm.
I felt like I had two options: either to keep working, keep the job security, keep working and be unhappy for a number of years, or to make a change and take on a lot of risk. And
Mm.
I chose number two, and I honestly, I have not looked back. What I'm doing, my practice, my business has surpassed all my expectations of what it could be, and I'm very grateful. I feel very blessed to be in the position I'm in.
No, I think that that certainly makes great sense. So now maybe one follow-up question to that, which is, so you identify burnout, you say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, figure out I want to help people, and that's the direction I'm going to go. And so you go and say, I'm going to start my own business. It's going to, so you go out, learn how to be a coach, get some of the certifications and training, and then you dive into that. Now, my very limited experience, mostly based on getting pinged a lot on LinkedIn, is, there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of people that think that, that they would be a great coach, or that that's their calling. Some people it's true and it works out well, and other people is, they have a difficult go of trying to get a business just because it's a competitive marketplace. So kind of as you're figuring out this is what you want to do and getting those training certifications, starting the business, how did it go? Was it bumpy and it was hard to find clients, or was there pent up demand and everybody wanted, or knocking down your door, or kind of how did that go?
Yeah, definitely not knocking down my door. And that's a great point, though. And if you've got listeners out there that they're thinking about coaching, they're thinking about, gee, I could do that, or I want to do that, and number one, if they really have a passion for it, if they really feel it's a calling for them, I say do it, go for it. But at the same time, the numbers are not good. Failure rate for a coaching practice is around 80%. So, I've been doing this for over 7 years. I've figured something out, and how did that all happen? So I owe you an article too. So this is, kind of preview of what I've got in mind. But in the beginning, I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to generate clients for me. So I tried everything. I tried everything that I could think of, short of going door to door. I didn't do that, but you name it. I did radio ads, I did streaming ads, I did Google ads, I did a lot of networking. I joined my local chamber of commerce, which actually was a good move on my part, because I learned a lot about local resources. But over time, and again, kind of a preview of my article, but I made a decision about, this is probably around 6 months, between 6 months to 9 months into my launch. I made a decision. I am going to stop doing things that don't work. It seems pretty simple, but I'm not. I've given it a chance, right? I've given this channel a chance. I've given these ads a chance, and it ain't happening. So I'm going to stick with those things that prove somewhat successful for me. And once I made that change, once I made that decision, life became a lot easier. And so now I can tell you that I am established, and I do have some repeat business. I keep the door open. I do get some repeat business. I do get some referrals. Mainly, I stick in channels where I know I'm needed, where I know that I'm wanted. So that we can talk about social media, but right now, the big gorilla there is LinkedIn. I think you mentioned LinkedIn a little bit ago. So that's probably 90% of my clients I get through, 80 to 90, something like that. I get through some kind of LinkedIn activity.
No, I think that makes sense. And I think that's, sometimes that's what you've got to look at is, you're saying, there's a lot of different ways that you can try, and you hit on, Facebook ads, LinkedIn, you can do, billboard, you can do radio ads, you can do television ads, you can do, and the list goes on. And I think to some degree people are saying, well, I've got to just, I've got to have there's one magic bullet out there that is just going to always work. And if I can just find that magic bullet, that will be the thing that will save my business. And I think almost never is that the case, in the sense that every business is different and every person is different. Sometimes what works for people of, hey, they're very social people, and you love being on social media and sharing your journey and sharing your story. Other people, just the opposite. They hate social media. They don't like being on, and their posts don't come across. So I think that is where you have to try out different things and then be smart enough to say, rather than keep just dumping money into it, see which works for you. So I think that's a interesting part to your journey, is figuring that out. So
Yeah.
now with that,
No,
so now as you, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, that reminds me a little bit of some of the topics that I cover in my career coaching, as people they're looking for opportunities. And, if you can try some avenues, some channels that most people don't, you're going to have a little bit of an edge there going. And so exactly what you just, you were just saying that, some people are face-to-face people. Some people are social media people. Some people are get on the phone and call people. And I cover all of those topics. And, then I would kind of do an assessment and drop some kind of a strategy, some kind of a networking strategy. And, which of these channels that I've talked about, and I try to talk about the pluses, the minuses, pros and cons, which could you actually see yourself doing?
No, and I think that's a great takeaway and a great point. So now catch us up, kind of where is the business today? What's going on? Is it continuing to grow, kind of reach a level of steady state where that's where you want it to be? Is it on the decline? And, kind of where's it at today, and how's it going?
Yeah, no, that's I'll be happy to talk about that. So it kind of reminds me of, and because of the work that you do, you can probably relate to this. So I saw one cartoon where it was a graph, and it was, the first part of the graph, the needle was all the way up, right? It was all the way to the top, and then it dropped away almost down to the bottom. And then it went back up again, and then it dropped down again. And then when like this, and the caption was one day in the life of an entrepreneur.
Right.
So I'm happy to say that 2022, first quarter 2022, it's the best quarter I've ever had since I started the business 7 years ago. I had the largest revenue, I had the largest profit. Second quarter was solid, not record breaking, but it was solid quarter. We're into the summer now, and I'm in a little bit of a dip, so I've got some windows that I'm looking to fill, and I am taking new clients, and I offer free consultation. I'm always happy to do that. So and looking back, kind of recent history, every year that I've done this business, it's been better. I started in 2015. Every year has been better in terms of revenue, profit, except for 2021. And in 2021, I saw about a 35% drop in annual revenue. So that was not good. That was not good. So I talking about different channels and different avenues. And I looked into that. I actually myself, I worked with a business coach, someone that I had known for a number of years, and I did some initial training with, years ago, and I trusted. And we looked strictly at the business pieces of what I was doing. What are the components that you work with? What do you charge people? How do you charge people? All of those things. And it was very helpful. I think that success that I saw the first part of the year, I'm pretty confident came out of my work with a business coach.
No, I think that's awesome. And I think it's great that a bit you take your own advice and you have your own coaches and people that are helping you and directing as to how to do the business and what, helping you to step back and analyze that. So I think that's fun on all fronts. And, it's always interesting. I think a little bit, especially if you're in the service-based industry, you always suffer from what I call the contractors dilemma. Because contractors, if you ever built a house or had them do construction, they're always overbooked and they're always behind and they always never meet the schedule, or I don't know, always, often. And so, and the reason is because they're always trying to overbook. They're always, because you go through that feast and that famine. And whenever you go through the famine or the downturn, you're always wanting to make sure that hey, I don't want to have that happen again, so I'm going to overbook and overcommit and overpromise, such that I'll always have plenty of work. And then by that definition, then you always have that drawback to now you're making the people are unhappy. So it's always that kind of trying to find that right balance, and it's always definitely a difficult one to find. So now as we kind of reach towards the present day of your journey, it's always a great time to jump to the two questions I always hit on at the end of each episode. So we'll hit on those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
So, I suspected that you're going to ask this question, and I've given this a lot of thought, and I'm just going to be honest with you. This may hurt me in some social media, but I would say honestly, I haven't made too many bad business decisions, but in hindsight, probably Google ads, probably spending money on Google ads. I think they have their place, but at least for me, the nature of what I do and where I was starting from, they were pretty expensive, and they didn't really generate much activity. So I honestly, I think that's probably, in hindsight, that's probably what I would have to say.
No, it's interesting because I've had a similar experience. I know some law firms that they just do great on Google AdWords, and others just it doesn't work for them, and they just throw in a lot of money. And I think it can be very industry specific. I think it can be, does it match up with how you or want to cultivate clients? Do you have the website optimized? Do you have the people there? Is that the way that your customers are going to want to hit? And so I've certainly been through that similar experience to where, sometimes it's a great avenue and other times it's just a money hole or a money sink, and everybody thinks it's the silver bullet. And if I can just get in front of people, sometimes it's the case. And other times you're saying, hey, it's not one where I'm not making the revenue that would make sense to keep doing it. So I think that's definitely a mistake that a lot of people can learn, and you oftentimes have to figure out whether or not it works for you. So it definitely makes sense.
Just my personal experience, just one person. I think I think you're right. For some businesses, for some entrepreneurs, I think it can be part of the mix. Sure.
Absolutely. Okay. Second question I'll always ask is, talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you give them?
I think my advice for someone looking at a startup, starting their own business, have a plan. It maybe you've heard this before, maybe this is a very common answer, but I would put it in this terms. Have one page, create a one page, what your business is going to be about, what your product or service is, what you think your market will be, what your pricing will be. Do some, quick math to see, am I going to make money? And have that in place. If you go, and through the work that you do, Devin, but if you go to a bank for a small business loan, this kind of thing, they're going to want a plan. And a lot of people have something in their head. They don't have anything written on paper to show anyone. So that's one thing I would say, start with one page plan. What is your business? What is your product or service? What's your pricing? What do you do better or different than anybody else?
No, and I think that's a great takeaway. And I think that I also like to keep it as that almost that one page, because sometimes people want to do a 20 or 30 or 50 page plan and have everything laid out. And I think that usually you spend more time, and most of the time you throw the plan away, in the sense that things are going to change, things are going to adjust. And so I think that you need to have that plan and convince yourself it's worthwhile, and also have kind of that roadmap. But on the other hand, get to work and actually implement it. The one that I always found interesting that I like personally, which is kind of goes along with that, I took it from another podcast guest, but I can't remember which one. So I apologize, I can't give them credit for it. But they were talking about, hey, what you should do is just go build a website, in the sense that a lot of the times the same things you're going to be putting in that plan, you have to identify who your customer is, who their price point is, how you're going to reach them, what is your marketing strategy, what are your points of differentiation, and you have to highlight that if you do a good website in the same way. And yet you also kind of get it, make it fun, it comes to life, and you otherwise get to build something as you're doing it. So that's always been kind of my preferred way, and I know it works differently from everybody, but I do think getting that plan in place and convincing yourself while not going overboard is definitely a great piece of advice.
Right,
Well,
right. It
oh,
doesn't
go
need to
ahead.
be perfect. Sorry, I
Yeah.
just interject that it does not need to be perfect. And you're right. I mean, just start somewhere and don't make it so big that you're going to frustrate yourself. That's, you know, conquer by division, divide and conquer. The ancient Romans had that expression, and that's where they were successful.
No, I definitely think that's the case, and I think it's some great takeaways. So, well, now as we wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, and find out more?
Sure. Until my phone starts ringing off the hook. So I do have a website. Go to my website. It's ascendprocoach.com. ASCENDPROCOACH.com. There's an 800 number. Call the 800 number, and I will get that message. They're also on my website. I got just a heads up. I have there's an option to send an email. Don't do that, because really that email, my corporate email or my business email, is catching all my spam. That's what I use it for. But just give me a phone call, and well, I'm happy to have a conversation. As I say, as long as I've got the bandwidth, I'm always happy to do a free consultation with anybody that's considering a change, either change of job or career, or they're looking to grow their leadership, grow their presence, grow some leadership and executive skills. That's another area that I work in.
Awesome. Definitely encourage people to reach out and leverage some great coaching, some great information, and take advantage of the consultation as well. And so, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, definitely feel free to apply. Just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the podcast. A couple more things as a listener, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review. So we want to make sure everyone finds out about all these awesome journeys. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup, your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
My pleasure. And I love what I do, so I'm going to keep doing it. I have no retirement date in mind.
All right. Awesome.